If your favorite romances are dark, addictive, and just a little bit dangerous, let me recommend The Dare by New York Times bestselling author Harley LaRue.
This viral novella serves as the perfect introduction to Harley's bestselling Losers universe. Jessica was the untouchable prom queen. Manson was the outcast she made sure everyone feared. Years later, one Halloween party, one game of Drink or Dare, and one impossible challenge forced them into a night that changes everything they thought they knew about each other.
If you love bully romances, enemies to lover tension, morally complicated characters, queer representation, and stories that aren't afraid to explore the darker side of desire and devotion, this one's for you.
This gorgeous new edition also includes a full gold foil cover and an exclusive bonus novella, Ghosted, available in print for the very first time. Fun fact, The Dare became infamous after Amazon temporarily banned it for being too sexy, helping cement Harley LaRue as one of dark romance's most talked about voices.
The Dare by Harley LaRue, available now wherever books are sold.
People keep asking what's the next book they need to read, and the answer is very simple. It's Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick.
In a world created for the descendants of gods, where the Fae are born to serve, a woman bound to the air of death fights fate and desire. Storm of Secrets and Sorrow is book 2 of the best-selling book talk sensation, a contemporary dark romantasy legacy series for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Kaylee Smith, and Rebecca Yarros.
The second I knew that this book had me was when I realized it had gods, dragons, shifters, vampires, and witches. It has it all for you.
It even has my favorite tropes like morally gray characters, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her or him and die, one bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits, like you can't go wrong.
And everyone knows that it is fantastic because the first book was independently published back in 2023, and the series was a #1 Amazon bestseller with nearly 40,000 Goodread reviews and 16,000 Amazon reviews as of 2025. So you know it's grown even more.
And when it was published traditionally, it was an instant New York Times bestseller.
Make sure you get your copy today of Storms of Secrets and Sorrow. It has an incredible deluxe special edition with stenciled edges, a beautiful foil-stamped hardcover, exclusive design with illustrated end papers, and full-color character art.
You can find Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
I recently discovered 11 Reader because a fun fact about me that a lot of people don't know is that I have a reading disability. I have always struggled with reading and concentration. And when it comes to things like PDFs or things that I really need to focus on, 11 Reader has really come in handy.
The fact that I can upload my own content, I have so many business memos I have to read every day.
And then it reads it to you. And you get to choose the voice that reads it to you. You get to have a British accent reading those documents to you.
And I just retain so much more.
I really love the voices. Having a British accent whisper sweet nothings about legal documents to me keeps me going.
Start free with 10 hours of your own content per month. And that's essentially a 400-page book turned into audio for free.
Upgrade to Ultra for $11 a month and unlock unlimited uploads plus 20 hours of premium audiobooks every month. No credits, no commitments. It's really the ultimate listening app when you can't get enough. Being able to retain information is really hard for me when I'm reading certain difficult documents. And I really can't emphasize enough to you guys how much 11 Reader has helped me review so many things for the podcast.
Whether you're writing your own book, you have a lot of documents to go through, or you want to listen to audiobooks, choose 11 Reader and use promo code podcast to get your first 2 months for only $1.
Bryce regrets her choice to abandon Nesta and Azriel to the Midgarden worm and returns to rescue them, only to have her treachery served back to her on a cold platter and a forced encounter with the mask of the dread Trove. In the Asteri's dungeons, Hunt, Ruhn, and Baxian attempt to escape their shackles, while Lidia seeks to help Ophian to enact her plan to liberate them. Meanwhile, Ethan makes a deal with the Viper Queen to let him and his friends go, including Therian, but doesn't bargain well enough to avoid the worst possible outcome. Back in Prythian, Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel resume their trek through the subterranean tunnels to find themselves at the bottom of the prison, where a hidden message from Princess Celine is waiting to be found by a starborn heir.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
And we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up Book Talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you give a classic in a literature class, just with more humor and way more homework for us, and none for you.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through multiple literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow, the third book in the Crescent City series. In this episode, we cover chapters 13 through 19.
For a complete list of episodes and the chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Spilt, spoilers, perspective, and interpretation, language, themes.
Spoilers. This episode covers House of Flame and Shadow with full context from the preceding books in the Crescent City series, which include Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath, as well as the entirety of the ACOTAR series published as of July 2026. If you haven't read those books, this is your only spoiler warning. Anything else SGM related, whether that be the Throne of Glass series or her interviews, will be saved for the Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode that airs tomorrow,
July 26, 2026, in case someone comes back to this in the future. I don't know. Perspective and interpretations. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We do not speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We would love to hear them, so please share.
Language. We use explicit language, so do what you need to do to silence us?
Or just be okay with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get through it. Hold your hand. Hold my hand. Themes. We will discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We will do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised. Particularly this episode, we'll talk about sexual assault and violence.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website. And if you would like more exclusive content and live streams, you'll find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
Each week we ask ourselves a question. This week it is, how does colonization shape the landscape of the story and the characters' development as well?
Themes we see in this section include power stolen and who can and cannot atone for sins.
We're back, baby.
I mean, for you guys, it's just been a week. For us, it's been maybe 2 months?
A month and a half, maybe. I don't know. It was after my mom fell was when we had our first. So it was early June. We recorded the first episode right after she was in the hospital.
Or the second one.
Second one. And I was just sad. So you guys were back. Mom's out of the hospital. She's back home. We're all good. We had a nice break.
We needed the mental break.
We really did.
I don't know what we were thinking we could just go from, Air of Fire
we were
to
thinking of the listeners, and that's the last time we do that. Kidding. We love you.
No one benefits in the long run.
No one does.
All right, we are starting in chapter 13, and Ethan decides, you know what, he's going to be a big boy and approach the Viper Queen to make a deal to get him and his friends out of the meat market. Because, he's got leadership qualities. He used to play Sunball.
I mean, can't you tell with this quote? He'd left Flynn, Deck, Mark, and Therian quietly debating not only how the fuck they get out of the meat market, but also whether to trust the Hind. Of course he leaves them. He leaves everyone. This is so on brand. He just keeps leaving people. And he was like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go solve this. And I'm going to leave everyone. And I'm actually going to make everything worse.
Yeah. He cries about being a lone wolf. And yet, when he's not alone, he acts like a lone wolf. He does not take anybody's opinion into consideration.
But like the dumb lone wolf who goes and dies in the corner.
And rightly so, the Viper Queen treats him like a child because that is what he is. She accuses him of quote-unquote yelping when he threatens her guards because, she's been making him wait for 5 hours to see her. And by doing so, she riles him up, which means she successfully gets Ethan off of balance, which makes him flustered and unfocused when they meet. What does this mean? This means that, like a child, Ethan doesn't think about the bargain he's making with her all the way through and doesn't suss out the terms before agreeing to something with her because he's like, well, I got my way and it's all going to be fine. It'll all work out. And he'll just get shit for it later. I do appreciate the power move on her part. She destabilizes him in a way that she gets what she wants out of the bargain, while also making him feel unconfident and not in control of the situation.
Yeah, the Viper Queen is great at playing mind games. Even her setting is just confusing. So she's at her desk and, quote, a statue of Luna set atop that computer, arrow pointed at the Viper Queen's face. You could look at it and say, hey, this is a sign to not trust the Viper Queen. Like, she ends up not being great. I feel bad. I thought the Viper Queen was going to come in clutch at the end, but alas. Then the quote continues, on the desk itself sat a statuette of Chthona, carved from black stone. In one arm, the goddess cradled an infant to her bare breasts. In the other, she extended an orb, Midgard, out into the room. Chthona, birther of worlds. I think it's interesting that the Viper Queen has both goddesses here, especially when we know that she ends up screwing them over. It feels like a sign that should have been, look, she's good, here we go. Like, she celebrates these goddesses, and then it ends up not being the case.
Or the other way you could interpret this, knowing what we know now about her, is she has no loyalty to anyone, and it's all performative.
Yeah, there's so many things about, that we know that she rewrote some stuff that I will always forever have questions about. During Ethan's absolute shit negotiations, he thinks, quote, fuck, he should have brought Mark with him. He'd have thought this through, would have spotted any pitfalls a mile off. He's had 5 hours. 5 hours outside to think about what he was going to negotiate, to think about what he wanted, and to think about maybe he should bring someone in. In no world are we meant to believe that he is meant to be a competent leader. And we won't know until the next book whether these are signs or SJM is blind by her own writing.
Right. Or growing pains, like he's right to doubt himself when the Prime makes him Prime apparent.
Yeah, but he doesn't suffer, I think, good enough consequences in here. I think, like we talked about before, everyone else, women particularly, suffer his consequences. And in order for these to be growing pains, he needs to suffer.
Right. So that he can actually grow.
Yeah, he's just a menace to women.
Yep. Unlike Ethan, we have our queen, Lidia, who is the queen of weaponizing everything and anything to get her way. Now, granted, when we go into her point of view, we are reminded of her position as a pet of the Asteri. Her bedroom is, quote, a monstrosity of gold silk, ivory velvet, and polished oak, overlooking the 7 hills of the Eternal City, the perfect room for the pampered, loyal pet of the Asteri. She is metaphorically a bird in a gilded cage, and we can see that in the description of her bedroom.
She's literally a fawn in a gilded cage.
Nice, nice.
I want to continue that description, though. Quote, "You're not dressed?" he asked, frowning at her dove gray silk dressing robe. I love that Pollux continues to be shown as white, as pristine, and, always dusting off lint and dirt off of him, while you have these little descriptions where Lidia is in a gray robe. Dove gray, so we get that, bird in a gilded cage reference there, but we also kind of have this innocence because you're not pigeon gray. Again, hashtag justice for pigeons, but it's, you could go for an uglier gray. But just pointing that out.
I do also want to point out that when I read that particular moment, it kind of, to me, highlighted her grayness as a good character, right? Because she's done many horrific things, both in the name of good and not in the name of good. And that's going to be a theme throughout this episode of characters ruminating on theirs or others' perceived goodness or their ability to atone for the things that they have done that are not good. And Lidia, being in gray, just kind of reminds us that she is among those that people will question. Her situation as that pet, that bird in the gilded cage, is being reinforced by her interaction with Pollux, not just by what Jack described, but also this description of Pollux who looks pleased at the pain Lidia is feeling because of her menstrual cycle. She thinks of him as a, quote, cat enjoying the suffering of its dinner. Again, just re-emphasizing that she's the bird in the cage.
Right. And then we have this moment where Pollux is like, you're not on your period, you're early. But then, quote, right on cue, Pollux sniffed, scenting her blood. You're early. He knew because he didn't like to fuck her when she was bleeding. She'd come to cherish her cycle. Pollux usually tormented someone else that week. This is amazing because it's Lidia weaponizing her period. It's highlighting that men fear menstrual blood because he's totally fine torturing, but God forbid it comes out of vagina, then it's not okay. And it also highlights how Pollux has used sex as a form of control. And this is her rebellion and, way of fighting back from that control. It's also unfortunate because that does put, like she said, his attention onto other women. Mm-hmm. Now, in my mind, I'm going to hope that those women are willing participants in this, but we also know that he is not a very nice lover, we'll say, because he enjoys her pain. Quote, she didn't have to fake her wince. Tell Rigulus I apologize. Pollux observed her without an ounce of mercy. To the contrary, his cock thickened, a cat enjoying the suffering of its dinner. It's already mimicking sexual assault. He's getting off on the pain of the control, and even in a moment when he's not getting his way with her, he's able to hurt her, and that is what gets him hard. And you can really look at it as like anytime he touches her, like sexually, it is a form of abuse. It's sexual abuse, sexual assault. You have to think about that because there's a scene later that implies a lot, and it hurts my soul.
Mm-hmm. And just because she participates doesn't mean that she's consenting, right? Because the power dynamics are too intense. Like, she is forced into participating to maintain her cover.
This is the same as any woman who has had to have sex or do anything sexual with a man who is far more powerful. And just because you aren't saying no and you're not fighting does not mean that it's not assault. So keep that in mind. Someone needs to explain to these men that it's not okay. Anyway, all right. I'm back.
Right. Reading about Lidia coming to cherish her menstrual cycle is really sad because we know how aggressive menstrual cycles are for the Fae. And so for her to be like, this is my oasis, sucks. But I admire her using every lever she has to get control of a really uncontrollable situation. Similarly, she dangles information above Ophian's head to convince them to do what she wants. And in the process, they are her unwitting accomplices to freeing Ruhn and company because she's a badass. And she knows how to give people what they want in exchange for what she wants, just unbeknownst to them. Now, returning to Prythian, Nesta reveals to Bryce, I once had a tattoo that looks a lot like your star. How weird. And when Bryce questions it, Nesta reveals that she and Bryce are a lot more alike than Bryce has maybe caught on to before, especially with how they think about fate. Quote, I've been in the Fae realms long enough to know that there are forces that sometimes guide us, push us along. I've learned to let them and to listen. Nesta smirked. It's why I didn't kill you for following your starlight into the river. You were doing the same thing. I like that Nesta recognizes in Bryce the things that Nesta herself has come to believe. And what is that? Bryce trusts her star. She trusts Erd to be that guiding force in her life, just like Nesta has learned to rely on the mother, which we've learned from A Court of Silver Flames. And really, these two could be best friends. Bryce even jokes about it, but guess what? Bryce is about to betray you, Nesta, because that's what Bryce always does. Now, I do feel like this is Nesta trying to connect to show that there aren't that many differences between her as a high Fae former human and Bryce, who is both Fae and human. But it is ruined by the appearance of the Midgard worm, which Bryce is lured there. What I want to point out about this scene is that Bryce and Nesta could have really formed a bond and a connection that would have strengthened Bryce in the long run. Like, imagine if Nesta had powered up Bryce's battery with silver flames. That would be pretty baller, right? But there's so much inherent mistrust in Bryce for Faye in general that Bryce isolates herself. Never mind that Bryce acts like Faye herself.
Yeah.
We'll get to there in a moment. Take a sip?
Yeah.
All right. We are now in chapter 14, and narratively, Bryce has confirmed for the reader at this point that she is in fact the cause of the Midgard worm's appearance, thanks to her bleeding hands. Now, despite that being Bryce's plan for days, guilt weighs heavy on Bryce, and we see that in the changed descriptions of the environment. Quote, the faces of the tunnel carvings watched Bryce's flight with cold, damning eyes. From a writing perspective, I think SJM does a great job conveying Bryce's mental and emotional state without Bryce saying, yeah, now I'm feeling guilty. It's a great show don't tell moment. It happens a few times, and I just wanted to call it out.
There's a lot about Bryce being in Prithian that I think readers have challenged, saying that it's not necessarily believable. And I kind of want to highlight some of those moments where people might say that it's not believable. Quote, but Bryce needed to learn whatever Erd had set her to discover. If it was intel that could be helped or harm her world, she didn't want these people knowing, using it against her, offering it up to the Asteri, or wielding it against Midgard for their own. Whatever lay ahead of her was hers alone. So we've already talked about her not trusting them, but there's also this level of like, I need to do everything alone, right? And not only does Bryce not trust them, understandably, but we also have to remember Bryce is very much a I will do this on my own type of person. She will not even tell anyone. Maybe at the end she learns to tell Hunt things, but this is just so on brand where it's like, this is for me alone. I clearly can't get help for this or with this. Yeah. Side note, there's also this description of, quote, Nesta and Azriel's power flaring like lightning against the nightmare of the worm. Whenever there's lightning, it makes me think about Hunt, and it's almost like a, trust them. They're lightning, just like your mate.
Maybe they're not so bad.
Yeah. I'd be so fucking trusting.
You want to help me? Okay, thanks, guys.
I just would be like, do you want to know everything about my life? I'll tell you. We got time.
They have been walking for days. Bryce could have told her entire life story a couple times.
I would have done it by day one. I would have had them cackling, laughing. Either that means I die sooner, or I would have solved this far faster than Bryce.
Yeah. Now, as I mentioned before, Bryce's conscience is catching up to her. And on some level, she realizes she's probably no better than many of the Fae she despises. But it's not quite a thought she can swallow at this point. Quote, she'd long ago understood that this kind of thing wasn't beyond the Fae, as in treachery. She took comfort in knowing she wasn't like them, would never be that way. Yet what she'd just done, she wasn't a monster, was she?
Bryce has to walk the walk if she wants to talk the talk, you know, like she has to do it. And ultimately, I think Bryce has proven time and time again that she is at her core a selfless person. And this is just another moment of that.
Exactly. And this can be true, and she can still struggle with it. And I don't blame her for struggling with it, because there's a lot of different parts of her identity that are in tension right now. She's always prided herself on like her quick thinking, her smart thinking, her ability to fool people, her general moral superiority, right? Like she always has it in everybody's best interest, essentially, especially the underdog. And she's not wrong. These things do set her apart from others, but I also think it makes Bryce think she has power over Faye, Vanir, others. Unfortunately, those traits of hers that make her good at outsmarting people, right now in this moment, it doesn't actually feel powerful to her. It makes her feel amoral, which means she's like, oh, I can't rationalize my actions because I still feel guilty. So I guess I have to go undo them.
And everything about her, even her magic, knows that she's done wrong. Quote, now bobbing with every sprinting step, it seemed harsh. her light, devoid of color. Like even the light was disgusted by her. This could be in her mind, or it could be truly her power recognizing that a starborn has betrayed, likely, another starborn.
Mm-hmm.
Hold the cereals, T. We'll be right back. I am trying to hit 10,000 steps a day and look cute and not have my back absolutely destroy me. And honestly, there's only one solution to this.
And that solution is Vionic shoes. I wear them every day to work so that I can walk on my walk pad looking professional, but the shoes also not look frumpy.
I mean, at this point, which Vionics do we not have? I am obsessed with my Walk Slim slide sneakers. I can walk forever in them. And then if I'm like, you know what? I'm not vibing a sneaker. Boom. I can hop over to my Amelita Mary Jane flats, and suddenly I'm like this timeless, cool girl fashion icon.
I get so many compliments on my City Walk sneakers from all age groups, and genuinely, they are so cute, and they're made with real suede.
The reason why we are so obsessed with our Vionics is because of Vionics' exclusive biomotion technology, and that's really what sets them apart. They began by revolutionizing medical orthotics. Today, they continue to use that science to engineer shoes that leave you feeling energized and confident all day.
They even offer a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them for a full refund within 30 days. I guarantee you'll know instantly that these are the shoes for you.
Use code BOOKTALK, that's BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK, at checkout for 15% off your entire order at VionicShoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only.
Vionic shoes, wearable well-being for your feet.
What I like, especially in this moment, as she's just kind of thinking like, oh my God, Randall would be so mad at me for not having a better strategy. It's her mom that would kill her for having a heart. Quote, "You saved me from the traps in the walls. It only made sense that you'd have a guilty conscience to go with that soft heart. Scratch that. Her mother would kill her for being so stupid." And I love that it's a mom, the mother, who's supposed to quote unquote be the female nurturer, who is the one that would have killed her for having that heart.
It's a great point. Back to Ethan at the meat market, because for some reason, SJM still keeps including him. He is getting chewed out by his friends for his dumb ass bargain with the Viper Queen. Cannot help but lash out. Because why? Because he's a child and does not want to take the blame for his actions and be accountable. Therian says to Ethan, quote, "You should have made her specify. She's going to screw you over. Screw us all over somehow." Therian's voice sharpened. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking," Ethan shot back, "that you made a stupid choice, and I was trying to get you out of it. Get us all out of this mess." Therian blinked at him, eyes dark, cold. "I didn't ask you to get me out of it. You think I can just walk out of here? I can't."
Well, I think that's like one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are like, "I didn't ask you to do this." And it's like, well, no fucking shit, Sherlock. That's what friends do for each other, you dumbass. I don't know. But I'm not mad at Therian. No, I am. But not like I am with Ethan. Because to me, this shows that Ethan believes that his choice isn't as stupid or as wrong as Therian. Therian's choice being like signing up with the Viper Queen. And you can argue both ways. Maybe what Therian did was hypothetically dumber than what Ethan did. But what I feel like there's still no acknowledgement necessarily of like, hey guys, I put all of our lives on the line here for a bargain. But don't worry, I did it because I was trying to get him out of his dumb choice. And my choice isn't as dumb as his. So there's also a level of self-superiority here.
Right. And what Therian's point is yes, Therian makes a dumb choice, but his point is, like, even if you succeed, Ethan, I still have the River Queen to go up against, who I defected from. Like, I'm still a wanted man. You're not saving me from anything. You're putting me in a worse situation.
And like, he's going to go and piss off another queen not that long from now.
Right, exactly. So Ethan can get off his high horse. That isn't that high. It's actually probably like 6 feet under. He just thinks the world, it's upside down.
He needs to go listen to Muna.
Now, to comfort himself, Ethan attempts to displace responsibility in general onto Sigrid because she's the alpha.
Now, I want to read this quote. "Anyone who traffics in lives," so this is Sigrid talking, "anyone who traffics in lives has no honor. I know, Ethan said, and for a moment he could see it in Sigrid's eyes, the rigid yet fair alpha she might be, with the emotional scars to understand the importance and value of each. First off, he's doing the exact same thing by trafficking and fucking with all of their lives. He's being reckless with his choices that he's making, leaving people constantly in order to go help others. So he's like fucking around everyone. But I also want to, again, point out this different version of him male-gazing her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Such a great point. That is exactly what he's doing.
Now, I'm going to mention this once and only once, and that's how they kill the worm. Because, quote, "We need to restrain it," Nesta said to Azriel, "so I can get close to it with ataraxia. If your power didn't kill it, there's no saying ataraxia will either. Fira killed it with sticks. Look, I understand. We need this to happen for the plot. We need this to have it go on. Like, there's purposes and reasons for it. And I'm sure SJM is probably like hoping that no one else remembers. And we're just going to be like, you know what? This is just going to be a more powerful worm. Feyre got the easy worm. This is going to be the hard worm. And I'm only going to mention it once, but
in my mind, I'm going to throw SJM a bone. The Midgard worm that Amarantha had was starving and weak, whereas this worm has been thriving in the tunnels for centuries, gobbling up food. I don't know. That's all I got.
Sure. I mean, we'll pull it. We'll go for it. Yeah. Whatever you want, SJM. I'll get there.
Now, even though we are in the Crescent City series, and we've talked about this before, we're going to talk about it again. I do appreciate SJM's consistency with her use of imagery and the imagery associated with each of her characters, especially with Nesta and the mask from the Dread Trove. So, to clarify, Nesta calls on the mask in order to control a skeleton that holds down the worm so she can kill the worm. So I'm reading from that area of the book. Quote, "A strange cold breeze swept through the tunnel. Bryce had endured that wind before in the bone quarter, a wind of death, of decay, of quiet. The hair on her arms rose, and her blood chilled to ice as Nesta opened her eyes to reveal only silver flame shining there. The wind, the sense of death, it is consistent, which makes sense because it's relevant to Nesta, it's relevant to this moment, but she might not get consistency right with the Midgard worm, but at least she gets consistency right with her imagery of Nesta and the mask. And what's more important from my mind is Bryce and Bryce's reaction to this. She is super shaken by the sensation of this mask and the constant basically chanting of it telling her to die, because this is power like she's never seen it. This is one of our first clues that she's encountering undiluted power that doesn't exist in Midgard, and she's intimidated by it. One other general note about the writing in Crescent City, Bryce observes at one point while Nesta is wearing the mask, quote, "The female turned her head toward Azriel with a smooth motion that Bryce had only seen from possessed dolls in horror movies." Now, I know it's like a shortcut, and not everybody loves shortcuts, but this is what I find fun about Crescent City, is that we get modern references that paint a clear picture in our mind of the motion that Nesta makes in this moment. And I like it.
I do too.
Take a sip. All right, we are now moving on into chapter 15. Now we're with Bryce. The Midgard worm is dead, and Bryce does not like the fact that she's being held accountable for her poor choices. In fact, she strongly dislikes getting a taste of her own medicine. Quote, "After another fitful rest, Azriel and Nesta were both still clearly pissed at Bryce. Rightly so, but wasn't she allowed to be pissed too? They'd manipulated her every step of the way, watching her like some animal in a zoo, making her think she'd caused the cave-in when they'd engineered it themselves. My personal feeling about Bryce is the fact that she's calling the kettle black right now. She's the pot, they're the kettle. She manipulates them too. She observes them like animals too. And at the end of the day, she is just as fey as they are in the way that she operates. And she doesn't like that about herself. So it's easier to be mad at somebody else than at herself and recognize that, oh, maybe I am more like my dad than I realize. Now we transition over to Ruhn, who is trying to connect with Lidia across a mental bridge to give her an update that, hey, guess what? Apollyon is our bro. We talked to him. Bryce isn't in hell. We're fucked. And Lydia's a saint, as we all already knew. Repeatedly, Lidia shows concern for Ruhn, and it doesn't warm his cold, dead heart. And I just want to come with receipts, partially because I appreciate when she does turn on him. So here are all the examples of when she's just like saintly to Ruhn, another child. When they first connect mind to mind, Lidia is concerned and, asks him what happened. And later, after Ruhn has told her about Apollyon, quote, to her credit, Lidia didn't balk at the mention of Apollyon. She didn't even question why Hunt was in contact with him. She's like, Ruhn, you're telling me something? I believe it to be true. Then she asks about Bryce, knowing now that Bryce is not where she's meant to be. Quote, her eyes churned with worry. Is she? Trusts Day to get right at the heart of the matter. And he's pissed that she's concerned. Quote, she took his nastiness in stride. Like, even he knows he's being nasty and observes, like, oh, she's really putting up with my shit. Like, at this point, you have to question, like, Ruhn is really just testing her. I don't know to what extent he believes his anger anymore, as much as it is just, again, him lashing out, just like everybody else. However, I will say, Lidia stops putting up with Ruhn's shit and does put him in his place when it comes to Bryce. And this is a moment I really love because she's a girl's girl and she's defending Bryce before she ever sides with Ruhn. Quote, you underestimate your sister. Fuck you, he snapped. Rigelus isn't underestimating Bryce for a moment, she went on, tone sharpening. 1,000 mystics, Ruhn, all looking for her. Do you know how many tasks he usually has them doing? But they are all focused on finding her. That tells me he's very, very scared.
Bite his hand off. Bite it again. Keep biting his hand off. The hell if I care. You said something interesting about, like, is Ruhn actually mad at her? I don't think Ruhn was ever truly mad at Lidia. I feel like Lidia highlights the worst of Ruhn, where she has always been a badass, like even when it was just Day, and he was an unwilling spy. Like, he was just a communicator. He wasn't even a spy. He was just like used to go and communicate some things. Meanwhile, here's Lidia just absolutely kicking ass and being a spy, right? He finds out about Lidia and that she's actually the Hind, and you can definitely have that moment of, holy shit, she hurt so many people. But you can also have that moment of, she is so high up. That is so dangerous. You know what I mean? Like, there's that moment, which then just reflects how little he's done.
Yeah.
And once again, here she is pointing out how amazing Bryce is. And it highlights how little he believes in his own sister.
Right. I completely agree with you. I really think that Ruhn's pride has been hurt in a lot of ways, partially also because he was blindsided by the fact that Day is Lidia and not that he was able to figure it out on his own. Yes, he does struggle with the idea of morality when it comes to Lidia, and I'll read that in a moment. But I think this is all based in him never willing to make himself uncomfortable to do the right thing, or not uncomfortable enough to risk his life, or not uncomfortable enough to stand up against his father for his sister. The things that he should have done, he always kind of half-assed or didn't do at all. Whereas here's Lidia, who has done both the terrible things in the name of doing what is best for others.
She does 100% either way. You know what I mean? Like, she is the best bad guy and she's the best spy. Like, there's no half off with her, and she's the most beautiful. Like, Lidia delivers 100%.
Yep. And like Ruhn, who maybe only delivers his hand 20%, 10%.
And that's the only good thing about him. I mean, I love Ruhn. I really do love Ruhn, but I find his dynamic with Lidia to be so toxic and unresolved for me personally in the end, especially that it has him shooting her, So.
Yeah. So here is one of these moments where Ruhn laments the morality of Lidia and what she's done. Quote, That was the problem, wasn't it? She knew who he was, and he knew who she was. Knew that while she might be Agent Daybright, she'd been the Hind for decades before she decided to turn rebel. Had committed plenty of despicable acts for Sandriel and the Asteri long before she'd killed the Harpy to save his life. Did changing sides erase the stain? Now, again, I think this is something that Ruhn chooses to be hung up on because it's easier for him. Because at the end of the day, if he's willing to acknowledge her sacrifice, acknowledge the hard things that she's done, and that she did those bad things in the name of good, I think there's part of him that is also like, well, what does it say about me if I'm willing to be with her and nobody knows the good that she's done, right? His image is at risk. Not that he's got a great one, but it's still, either way, whether he thinks people will think highly of her or despise her, it doesn't shed a great light on him. And I think it is going to have to take him losing his pride or, losing a hand and being dangled between two beat up angels on the way to a rescue for him to finally buck up and say, you know what? Maybe none of that matters. Maybe Lidia is fantastic and I should just be grateful.
Maybe I should be grateful and shoot her. Oh, I'm not going to be. I thought for a second that the biting the handoff was going to happen in this episode, and it kind of starts, but it
didn't.
So excited to read those chapters.
I just want to put a pin in this to say that Hunt is going to have a similar thought process regarding Baxian in a little bit. Obviously, Baxian is not Hunt's mate, but we're going to see this same kind of flavor of thought process later on, and I want to acknowledge that now.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of real world examples of this. Like, what about the people who were in the military of World War II Germany, who, whether they're scientists or soldiers, but then might have turned. And then you're like, well, you were also horrible. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's a good question to struggle with and to have those morality moments. Like you said, Baxian's not his mate. It's different when it's like a person versus someone that you supposedly know their soul.
Yeah.
Now, the last few lines for this chapter, I would like to read. And we got Ruhn here, quote, "I don't give a fuck what you're doing. I'm only here because other people's lives might depend on it." Hurt flashed in her eyes, and it was kindling to his temper. How dare she look that way? Look like she was hurt when it was his fucking heart. You're dead to me, Ruhn hissed, vanished. All right, cool. Remember when Pollux hurt her and he got off on it?
Mm-hmm.
I know people might be like, it's not the same thing. Ruhn's also hurt and Ruhn's not Pollux. Sure. However, Lidia is here and she's getting abused left and right, sexually from one, emotionally from another. She is absolutely a victim to both of these men and suffering from dominance and ego and pride. Ruhn, while extremely different from Pollux, has more similarities than I like.
I think it's a great point. And this gets back to something we were saying in our recording yesterday of we can look at this through the feminist lens and not like any of it. But in my first reading, I just wanted Ruhn and Lidia to be together and I just want them to be happy and in love.
Yeah.
But from a feminist lens, he kind of fucking sucks.
Kind of fucking sucks.
Take a sip.
Take a sip.
We are now into chapter 16, and Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel are continuing their trek through the subterranean tunnels in Prythian, and meanwhile come across an uncrossable chasm that Azriel says he can't fly across because it's too narrow. So, because we're all still keeping secrets, Bryce has to get charged up by Azriel's magic. When Bryce questions Azriel and Nesta and their willingness to be like, okay, we'll charge you up and see what happens. And instead of asking questions of, are you going to winnow away? Are you going to leave us behind? Nesta and Azriel weaponize Bryce's empathy against her. And they basically tell her the reason why she won't leave them behind is, quote, the same reason you came running back to see if we were alive. Azriel said coolly. Fine. She'd exposed herself with that one. There's going to be this theme of a lot of our characters demonstrating strengths or what are traditionally considered their strengths being cast as a weakness or a weapon to be used against them. And it makes them uncomfortable. And Bryce is not particularly happy about this one.
I would be like, oh, you don't like my weak heart? I expose my weak heart. Get ready to meet my spite, all right? Yeah. And my stubbornness. Because that will win out.
Yeah.
Think I won't leave you? Watch me.
Watch me. Except she doesn't want to let them know that it requires her to know where she's going.
Yeah, I know.
She has to have been there before. Another point of humor that I want to call out. Once Bryce gets Azriel and Nesta across the chasm, Nesta gives Bryce her phone back as a thanks/reward for winnowing them. And because, Nesta kind of dangled it as bait and motivation, but she really didn't have to give it back to Bryce. But she gives it back to Bryce. Bryce gets emotional because she sees a picture of Hunt. And to diffuse the tension, Nesta says, trying to figure out what it does has been driving us all crazy. That's Nesta's way of apologizing. And I just think it's cute.
I'm going to go on another plot hole issue. So when they get to the gates or the door and they're like, what do we do? Do we go all the way back? We have to walk all the way back to go get Rhys, right? And then Azriel says he can't winnow them back for whatever reason, even though we know that he can winnow Feyre, but okay, sure, whatever. He was like, we have to walk all the way back to the entrance. And then, right?
Yeah, but you can't winnow in or out of the prison.
Yeah, she just proved that she can.
But she's not in the prison yet.
They weren't in the prison then. They were at the door. They hadn't entered the prison yet. They were at the door going, should we go get them? And then Bryce opens the door.
I thought they were already through the door and then she goes through the wards.
I don't believe so. Okay.
Everyone breathe. We'll be right back.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince that's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I'm telling you guys, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Dry Bar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FromRebel.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone. So they end up having a heavy conversation here. Quote, she blew out a breath. And if I were to die in this world, what would happen to my soul? Would it find its way back to Midgard or linger here? This is when they're all talking about what happens when you die. And she was like, oops, my soul is kind of up in the air right now. And it feels like a very interesting existential crisis going on that I feel like would be interested to see if this is one of those things that SJM was putting herself in.
Interesting. I found that moment because she has a lot of conversations about did my gods follow me into this world? Do I not have access to them? And then it goes into the whole where does my soul go if I die here? It felt to me very meta in the sense of SJM being I know y'all are going to have these sorts of questions about crossover worlds and here's my answer. I don't have an answer, basically. That's what it felt like to me when I read it.
I think because there's so much colonization involved, and colonization is so hand in hand with like religion and everything. Yes, to what you're saying, SJM, you can tell the moments where she was like getting ahead of like, don't ask me these things.
Yeah.
And then I'm also like, but colonization and religion.
No, it's a great question. Okay, I'm getting whiplash from the back and forth of these characters, but we are now back in Midgard, and we're in Therion's point of view right now, just before Ethan goes into fight, and everyone is assuming that Ethan is going to have to fight Ariadne. Now, Therion might be pissed at Ethan for trying to free him without consulting him, but it doesn't mean Therion wants Ethan to die. So what does he do? He goes to threaten Ariadne. Ariadne, in my opinion, rightfully responds, quote, "And what about me?" she sneered. "What about you? Are you warning Ethan Holstrom not to harm me?" Therion blinked. "You're a dragon." So my sense of this moment, and I think it's important for Ariadne's character and whatever future might include Ariadne, she wants to be seen as a person, as a woman. Instead, she is consistently seen for what she is, which is a dragon, a powerful shifter. And because she's seen as an object of power and not a person worth protecting, she gets upset. This is why she's not helping out the crew right now. This is why she avoided helping out Bryce and Hypaxia in Sky and Breath. Because nobody ever takes the time to be like, you're a real person and I want to get to know you and show you that I value you. Instead, they treat her just like everybody else who's ever enslaved her. She is an object, and she is something to be intimidated by, not something to care for.
Yeah, like you said, she doesn't get to be a person, but like she's now a stereotype. That's it. Like what are dragons known for? They're being tough. She's absolutely dismissed when she points it out, and he tells her too that she's always just looking out for number one, as if wanting people to see her as like a living being and not just a dragon is too much. It ends back with Bryce, so much jumping back and forth, and she's sharing some of her music with Nesta and Azriel. Actually, this isn't the like sharing music part, but she's just kind of like talking about how like electricity and electronics, technology, everything works. And she keeps being like, I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. And so when we get to the phone, we get, quote, "And let me guess, you don't know exactly how it works." Bryce snorted. "Pathetic but true. We take our tech and don't ask what the hell makes it operate. I couldn't even tell you how the flashlight in the phone works." I think this is commentary for the reader and this world. I find that this book is very heavy-handed on things that we should be walking away from in our world, and that we should feel a certain level of awareness and maybe shame around our complacency and our trust in our tech overlords.
Yep, I agree.
We are in chapter 17, and Ethan is getting hyped for his fight, and he, quote, "stood at the edge of the empty ring in the center of the fighting pit, surrounded by his friends and Sigrid." It rubs me the wrong way. Now, I get it. Him and Sigrid are not friends. They've only known each other for like a handful of days. But it just continues to feel like he's othering her and making it clear that it's like, I'm here with my bros and my besties. Oh, right. And Sigrid.
I completely agree. And it comes back to bite him in the ass, obviously. But before we get there, Therion, in a fit of emotion, because I think he's convinced that Ethan's going to die by Ariadne's hands, says to Ethan, quote, "If you can get me out of here, I'll make it count. It means a lot that you'd even try, that you care." Now, I do feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but this feels like maybe the first time someone's really done something quote unquote selfless for Therion, right? I mean, I recognize selfless is relative when it comes to Ethan. Ethan's not never completely selfless, but for Therion, this is probably the most anyone's ever done for him and like stuck their neck out for him. And I do feel like in this episode, we're starting to see a turning point for Therion. I think it takes more than just this for him to really turn around, but I do see this as the beginning of change for him.
Yeah. I really feel like this scene, this moment is more about Therian and his journey, and it's set up for his journey. I think that one of the premises of the book and his personal arc is trying to make his freedom count. Like, what can he do with his freedom? Can he help others? Can he marry random women to help them? And then you have this little bro moment between Ethan and the bros. Quote, "We're a pact," Ethan said to Therian, Flynn, and Deck. "It's what we do for each other." None of them contradicted it. His heart strained. Meanwhile, Sigurd's in the corner being like, "I thought you said I was an alpha." And I will say, though, it is kind of cool because in many ways you can interpret this as them accepting his culture.
Mm-hmm.
But again, these group of guys just like staring longingly at each other and Sigurd in the corner.
Being othered once again. Now, when it's revealed that Sigurd is the one that's going to fight Ethan, Therian feels guilty AF. Quote, "Therian looked like he was going to be sick." Like I said, I think this is a turning point for Therian. I think it's especially this moment of guilt, right? Ethan did his own dirty work to get himself here, but Therian still feels responsible. And it's not like Therian to feel responsible for other people's choices. I think he recognizes the naivety in Ethan and is willing to be accountable for the outcome of that. And I might be changing my mind about Therian. I don't know how I feel about that.
I was on board with Therian as we started this book, and I'm happy that I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it might be a very, very long tunnel, but it's not an abyss of darkness like Ethan. And when Therian sees what the Viper Queen is doing to Ethan, it's more than just fighting. So the Viper Queen talks about Ethan's clothing, and she says, quote, to Therian, "You should have spruced him up a bit." Therian said nothing, his face like stone. Remember when we called out earlier the way that the Viper Queen potentially might have sexually assaulted Therian and at the very least sexualizes him? I feel like to me it's like, why didn't you put him in lingerie for me? Like kind of a vibe.
Why didn't you groom him for me like I wanted you to, basically?
Yeah, it's gross. And it continues to prove to me that this is in fact about Therian, because when we find out that Ari left, the Viper Queen explains, quote, "I think she said yes in order to avoid having to toast Holstrom to a crisp. I wonder who might have made her feel bad about that." They all turned to the mayor, who gaped at the Viper Queen. The best part is that Therian has no moral high ground to make Ariadne feel guilty. And here we are at the very beginning of potentially making his freedom count, and he's already fucking up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not great for him, but he tries, sort of, eventually. Now we're back with Bryce, and I do want to give SJM a shout out because when we switch back to Bryce, there's this moment when Azriel and Nesta are arguing, and we don't know who says what, but we can guess. Quote, "We should get Reese. We'd have to hike through the mountains, climb down past the wards, then hope we're not too far to reach him mind to mind." So we don't know who's talking, but we know exactly who's talking, right? Azriel's the one who's like, "Let's go get Big Daddy Reese," and Nesta's the one that's like, "Fuck no." And I think even if you don't know all those characters, even if you haven't read ACOTAR, I think she's done a pretty good job setting up Nesta and Azriel that you could guess who's saying what.
Yeah, because Nesta's very clear she's not a big Reese fan. Now, at this point, they're in the prison where Nesta found the harp. Bryce has gone past the wards to see the area where the harp was because that's where the 8-pointed star was. And she is recognizing, like, oh, there are constellations on the floor and these are from Midgard. Like, these are constellations I grew up knowing. And it's the first time we get a clear picture of the extent to which SJM has relied on Norse mythology to develop Midgard. And I just want to point it out because it stuck out to me, and I just want to acknowledge that it's there. So as she's naming various constellations, some of the last ones Bryce mentions are, quote, Odin. The next, closer to the center of the room, was a young, laughing male, Lakos. Another mound rose on the other side of the star, massive and helmeted. Thur, she said. Then she pointed to a mound with a female head, Faria. So I just want to acknowledge that the names she mentions are gods of Norse mythology. Odin, Loki, who's the laughing, mischievous one, the god of mischief. Thor, Freya, Also, Hel is a Hel, the way that Hel is spelt in Crescent City, is a Norse god. Sol is a Norse god. And Jörd, or sounds a lot like Erd, is also a Norse god. Midgard is from Norse mythology. It's the name of the realm of humanity, as is Vanir. Vanir is one of the groups of deities in Norse mythology, and the other group of deities in the pantheon is Aesir, which is also looks like a stary to me.
Good job, Amy. Who knew that SJM would be rooting for Norway in the World Cup when she wrote this? And yes, I did buy my Erling Haaland jersey, or kit, rather.
Did you?
And a t-shirt.
Nice. When's the next game?
Saturday. I'll be with my mom. It's versus England. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it is.
All of Mexico, or just like, we are Mexican Vikings.
Moving into chapter 18, Hunt is once again alone with his thoughts in the dungeon, and people should stop letting him do that because he spirals. Now, at the start of this novel, Hunt's ability to visualize Bryce was reassuring to him. Thinking of Bryce gave him hope that he could get through this. He could see her again. But now visualization is becoming a weapon that he is using against himself instead of helping him stay mentally sane and survive. Quote, Bryce, her name came and went with his wet, rasping breaths. He'd wanted so many things with her, a normal, happy life, children. Gods, how many times had he thought about her beautiful face as it would look when she held their little winged children? They'd have their mother's hair and temper and his gray wings, and occasionally he'd catch a glimpse of his own mother's smile on their cherubic faces. Whew, I'm so glad I can't visualize shit because that would suck.
You'd do great in torture.
I would do great because I can't. I just count really loudly in my head. Yeah. I'll get through this 1, 2, 3. That's all I got. That's how I get through my workouts.
Yeah.
What was once bolstering his faith and hope at the start of the novel, as I mentioned, is twisted and painful. And he recognizes that. He feels like this time in the dungeons is worse than the last time after the rebellion with Shahar, because, quote, to have come so close to those dreams, to be able to see them so vividly, to know Bryce was out there, and he was not.
This is just so heartbreaking, seeing Hunt struggle with this and, really getting a peek into what Hunt wanted, because it's what drives him, right? Like, he wants that peaceful future. He wants to be a stay-at-home dad. Like, he wants to be a girl dad. Like, the joy that he is imagining. And I think it's good. Like, you should want this, and it should hurt to realize that you may not have that. And I do want to say that this is potentially equal to, if not worse, than what Bryce may be going through. And now I know Bryce is out there fighting a worm. She's running away. She's, hanging out with some pretty dope fairies and stuff. But at the same time, she's really getting it easy currently.
Mm-hmm.
Her journey has been very much contained. She has only had to fight one thing, really, and she didn't even fight it. It was Nesta who took care of it, and she just gets a bunch of power and then leaves. I mean, they eventually fight in a stary there, but when you look at that compared to Hunt losing his hope, seeing that reality and losing that, I would argue is a much worse pain to be going through.
Yeah,
and he's being tortured.
And he's being tortured. And he's repeating his worst trauma. Yeah, he's in a much worse situation than Bryce, which I guess we can't be mad about because oftentimes the females in stories get the worst end of the stick.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I just think that it's important that we drive this point home now so that later when Hunt is so resistant, we understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I agree. To continue off that thread, I am starting at this point to see parallels between Hunt and Ethan. The difference is Hunt is altruistic, where Ethan is not. Not that Ethan isn't altruistic, he's just not 100% altruistic. He does it for himself as well. Whereas Hunt is like, I'm only going to continue to not spiral. I'm only going to continue to live through this moment instead of giving up completely because I am not alone. Because my people need me. Quote, if this was their one shot, he'd put it all behind him. He had been alone the last time. He wouldn't let the two friends beside him endure it. And what I love about Hunt and his story in this, even though I think a lot of people were frustrated by Hunt in this novel, Hunt is a perfect example of sometimes we have to do what we do not because we want to, not because we do it for ourselves, but because we do it for the ones we love. And he is resistant with Bryce later on. He's resistant to doing the right thing. The only reason why he does do it is not because it's right, but because it's what Bryce wants. And to me, that's selfless because he's like, I would rather ensure our survival. There's no guarantees we're going to survive this. And so I think I would be most like Hunt. Not that I would be altruistic, more that I would be resentful and I'd go through with it anyway. All right. So at this point, Hunt is finally shaken from his spiral because Ruhn has done the unthinkable and asks Hunt to chew off his hand. And quite frankly, Hunt is rocked by this. This description particularly stuck out to me. Quote, shock fired through Hunt like a bullet. The suggestion Ruhn is making is so violent, it's like Hunt has been mortally wounded. That is how much this request bothers him. I think it's easy to feel like Ruhn when Ruhn goads Hunt and says, quote, we need you to be the Umbra Mortis. He's a badass. He wouldn't hesitate.
He'd bite my hand off.
Right. Hunt says a badass, not a cannibal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is Ashram doing what she does best, which is kind of setting up small instances of Hunt pushing back so that when he does push back against Bryce, it's not surprising because he's been pushing back since earlier than Bryce showing up. He's drawing a line between what is necessary and what is unnecessary. And in Hunt's mind, biting off Ruhn's hand is not necessary. Internally, Hunt is starting to get philosophical and he's really struggling with this idea of like, can I do this? Can I do what Ruhn is asking me to do? And I think it's very similar to the struggle Bryce had when she left Nesta and Azriel to fight the Midgard worm. Quote, the guilt already weighing on Hunt on his shredded soul. What difference would this make in the end? One more burden for his heart to bear. It was the least he could offer after all he'd done, after he'd led them into this unmitigated disaster. Now, unlike any other character in this novel, Hunt feels a ton of responsibility for what is happening around him, even though it's not actually his responsibility. And he is willing to accept more guilt and feel shittier about himself and do the things he views as despicable because he feels like that's the only way he can atone for his sins. That maybe doing this thing that Ruhn requested and chewing off his hand, yeah, he'll live with that guilt, but maybe he deserves that. And that mindset reminds me of Lidia. Again, Hunt and Lidia, I think, have a lot in common. I think it reminds me of Lidia and her work with Ophian of like, I've got to do shit working for the Asteri, but I'm going to make up for it by working with Ophian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to give Baxian a shout out here for being the one to take on the actual biting of the hand off, which sounds so formal. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because he knows that Ruhn and Hunt are family, like they're in-laws, right? And I think having never done it, I really do believe that chewing someone's hand off would change your relationship with someone, even by a small degree. It would change things. I hope that nothing would ever come between us. However,
I think if you asked me to chew off your hand, I think we would struggle for a little bit.
In my mind, I was chewing your hand off. We were just gnawing each other's hands. Wow. What a moment. What an episode. Anyway, here's some ads.
Plan B is a backup birth control option that's there for you when things don't go according to plan. It specifically works after unprotected sex and before pregnancy occurs by temporarily delaying ovulation. Plan B is available nationwide at all major retailers and through delivery apps like DoorDash. No ID, prescription, or age requirement. It's the #1 OBGYN recommended brand of emergency contraception, and it won't impact your future fertility. That's freedom to be. Use as directed.
Are you seated? Do you know what's coming next? You probably really don't. It's Anna Lawani here from Culture Shock, the podcast where celebrities, all sorts of culture makers, people, and everybody in between, we just get on. And we're trading rehearsed answers for some unexpected, shocking questions, maybe sometimes dumb, that you may ask yourself sometimes, and you want to see someone else ask them. With all things plenty of laughs, surprises, and just enough chaos to keep everyone on their toes, you might enjoy this podcast. Be sure to check out Culture Shock wherever you stream your podcasts online, and obviously, you're gonna like this. I'm sure of it.
Hunt is really moved by Baxian volunteering to do this. Like, he recognizes that Baxian understands Hunt's dilemma and Hunt's desire to not change his relationship with Ruhn. And it makes Hunt think, like, wow, like, the Hellhound's a good guy. Quote, yeah. The Hellhound had been Hunt's enemy at Azriel's fortress for so many years. Where had that male gone? Had he ever existed? Or had it been a mask all along? Why had Baxian even fallen in with Azriel in the first place? Now, this is the same but different thought process in my brain as Ruhn has with Lidia, of just like, you were a bad person, you've done bad things for a long time, but you're also good, and how do I reconcile those things? Granted, Hunt handles it with more grace than Ruhn ever does.
Yep. I wonder if it's because he's a man. Let's just say it. I mean, and we hold women more accountable, and we just don't forgive women for being evil the way that we forgive men for being evil.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You know?
It's a good point.
We're back with Bryce, Azriel, and Nesta, and they're watching Celine kind of give the whole history of everything. That's all breadcrumbs. Just know that they're sitting there watching and going, oh my God. This is horrible.
Yeah. So I do want to read one quote from what Celine presents as information to Bryce. And I want to just mention it from the post-colonial literary lens as well as a Marxist lens, because it really is so like pervasive throughout the entire story that Celine tells. And we'll discuss it in more depth at the end of this episode. However, just want to point it out here. Quote, the Daglan ruled over the High Fae, and we, in turn, ruled the humans, along with the lands the Daglan allowed us to govern. Yet it was an illusion of power. We knew who our true masters were. We were forced to make the tithes to them once a year, to offer up kernels of our power in tribute, to fuel their own power and to limit our own. Now, this sounds very familiar to us because this is basically what's happening in Crescent City, just under a different mask. But when we talk about the post-colonial critical lens, we're talking about the Daglan or the Asteri, who are the conquerors, the High Fae, who are oppressed, who then in turn oppress the humans, and how, as a result of that oppression, the High Fae turn around and rise up against their colonizers.
Yep.
And it's a lot of power dynamics, hence the Marxist lens. But we'll talk about that in more depth.
It reflects our world too much.
Yeah, painfully so.
I just took a sip.
And finally, chapter 19. What I realized in my notes as I was finishing them was, oh, shit, everyone's becoming destabilized. Like, all of our best laid plans, all of our hopes, all dashed. And that's because shit's about to get real. In the case of Lidia, her period, which she used as a shield before against Pollux, is now flimsy and useless. What was once reliable and has been reliable for a very long time for her is no longer effective. Quote, Pollux opened the shower door and reached out a hand for her, an order more than an invitation. Water will wash away the blood, Pollux said, and she hated the weight of his eyes on her as she stripped. Stepping in, she winced at the burning heat of the water. Again, her menstrual cycle and the fact that she's bleeding was supposed to give her distance from Pollux. It was supposed to keep him away. It was supposed to give her control in an uncontrollable situation. Now she has lost that control. And in a way, she's deliberately made herself weaker. She's in pain unnecessarily because she started her cycle 2 weeks early on purpose. She is still being assaulted by Pollux regardless, and it's destabilizing for her. And that physical destabilization mirrors the mental destabilization of the Harpy's resurrection. That news and knowing that the Harpy knows Lidia killed her is a kink in Lydia's plans.
Yeah, I wanted to flag before we continue talking more, just like, discussing sexual assault, because I don't think that we realize what we're reading the first go around. And I'm going to reread some of that quote and expand on it. Quote, Pollux opened the shower door and reached out a hand for her, an order more than an invitation. With fingers that felt far away, Lidia unbuttoned her uniform. She is mentally distancing herself. She is removing herself. We know that's what survivors do in the middle of assault, that they have to mentally separate from the situation. And she's already doing that. And I don't think either of us read farther, but the scene plays out a little bit farther where he's grabbing her breast and, grabbing her ass so hard it hurts and nipping at her neck, sinking in the teeth so much she's wincing. And I don't think we fully appreciate that in this book, one of our FMCs, one of our heroines that we absolutely love and adore, is assaulted. Mm-hmm. And it's not highlighted in a way that you would think it would be, but it's still there. And I just want to give Lidia absolute props, because she went from her mate, her soulmate Ruhn, yelling at her, telling her to like fuck off, to this. And she's doing this in order to help save him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fuck you, Ruhn.
Mm-hmm. We are briefly in Therion's point of view with Ethan, learning that Ethan has to fight Sigrid, and his point of view, I think, confirms for me that we are setting the stage for Therion's not transformation. I don't know that he's fully transformed. I think he has a lot. Yeah, beginning of his arc. Quote, Ethan's face twisted, a portrait of anguish. Therion noted that pain and wished he'd never been born. His choices had led them here, his fuck-ups. Yes, Therion's always thought very little of himself, but I do think this sets the stage for him to be accountable, especially when they make it to Avalon and he meets Safia. That's for another day. But the fact that he's willing to be accountable, I think he, in a lot of ways, is seeing his sister in Ethan, someone he couldn't save, just kind of the same way Ethan sees his brother in Therion. But I like it better from Therion's point of view.
I agree.
Back in Prythian, Celene's tale continues, and it's one of power struggles. One of the ways power changes in Thea's story that Selene is telling is Thea exerts power over the domain that used to enslave her, the Dusk Court. And I do think it's kind of badass of Thea. Quote, the very island where she had once served as a slave became her domain, her sanctuary.
This is why I love SJM's writing, because you have Thea where you have this moment and you're like, fuck yeah, Thea, like, that's kind of badass. But then you're like, ooh, but you are actually still kind of horrible because humans are still enslaved, and you end up trying to become a colonizer and you're the one enslaving. So it's like, it's good. Like, both of these things are true, right? We're like, hell yeah, Thea. Ooh, no.
But you're still banned.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes Thea interesting to me is the fact that her husband, High King Finn, doesn't think she's fit to rule, even though together they overthrew the Asteri. And that feels like a story we need to know more about. I don't know if we're ever going to get it, but this quote especially stands out to me. Quote, but Finn did not consider my mother a worthy successor. The crown should go to the eldest child, he said, to my sister, Helena, who is, by the way, like a teenager.
I love and struggle with this. Again, fantastic writing. Because is this a commentary on older women not being able to lead, right? And while I do love an idea of letting a new generation take over, I am all for adding age limits to people in political power. But I don't like that he's several centuries older than Thea, so she is capable. But then again, he's also not wrong. She turns out to suck. Yeah. So it's like, did he know something we don't know?
But it's not like he freed humans either.
No, exactly. So it's like, again, it's very conflicting what's going on. We have more insight here. Quote, my father had never shown himself to be giving. Long had he kept Gideon and never once offered it to my mother. Again, not great. So now I'm like, okay, well, I can't imagine him being some kind of wise leader saying she's not ready for it. It's like, oh, actually, you are quite selfish. And we start to feel sympathy for her. And I think that the story does a great job starting with sympathy and us being like, wow, she's passed over. Her husband never did anything for her. And then we just see her become a power-hungry monster. So at this point, Thea's killed off her husband. And she's in charge now. And quote, our people bowed. What other option did they have in the face of such power? And for a short span, she ruled. I cannot say whether the years were kind to my people, but there was no war. At least there's that. I feel like we have an answer. Maybe they weren't kind. I think it's a pretty simple thing. If you can't say it wasn't kind, you can say it wasn't good, you know?
Yeah.
And again, does this just set up this belief that female rulers are bad? You know, is this the reason why you never have high ladies after this? Like, we know that there are no high ladies, just high lords. And is this one of those moments where you're like, this is the last time we had a woman in charge, God forbid. I mean, actually, we do know Celine ends up being in charge. But, you know, I think that this is a lasting impression and memory that continues. So, but again, if men could be shit rulers and continue leading, then we can have women be shit rulers and then continue leading. Not the same shit person, just others, you know? Another quote, it was never enough for my mother. Possessing all she had ever wanted was not enough. Greed. I do love a story where women get to be human, although she's fae, but you know what I mean? It's a very human story in the sense that she starts off as the underdog. She ends up in charge. She becomes greedy. She recognizes her problem that she did wrong. Like, Thea's story is so interesting, and I wonder if we'll ever get it because there are a lot of highs and lows here. And I think Thea learns ultimately that she can't do anything to make amends to what she did because she went to this other world and just fuck shit up. Quote, she simply gathered our people, all those willing to conquer and colonize, and opened the doorway. Like Amy mentioned, colonization, post-colonial, this is colonial. And it's like they're not even trying to hide it. You know, there's no mask of, hey guys, I'm going to go find sugar and salt. I'm going to go get spices. This is what I'm going to do. Again, not supporting Christopher Columbus here, but you know, the original mission was we're going to go find a different route for trade. Turns out we're horrible people who are going to go enslave others. This is just starts off with enslaving, you know?
Yeah. Let's go steal some land and people. And, you know, in some ways, it's Thea enacting revenge against the Daglan, even though the Daglan are no longer there, right? It's just the humans. And what do the humans matter? We are now the most powerful because we got rid of our oppressors. Quote, we found cities in Midgard carved by human hands. This world had been mostly populated by humans and only a handful of unusual creatures that had kept mostly to themselves. It was a blank slate as far as worlds went. Little native magic to fight the Daglan's power. Fuck you, Bryce breathed. Nesta grunted her agreement. Blank slate my ass. This is what is sad, and I think SJM does well if we view the humans as the minority being oppressed, which is what they are if you think about it in Crescent City. Their accomplishments, their entire civilizations are viewed as a blank slate because they are inferior to what the Fae can accomplish. And to me, that sounds a lot like white colonizers when they come across ancient civilizations in the Americas, in Africa, in Asia. They are not as sophisticated in the views of the white colonizer, and therefore the white colonizer must give them the gift of the white society, religion, etc. Now, Bryce is really struggling with the truth of Thea's actions, and I don't blame her. And she begins to wonder about Adis and like, how can Adis have been in love with Thea when she was this way? And it's very similar to the struggle Ruhn has with Lidia. Everybody's struggling thinking about somebody being in love with someone else and their bad actions. Quote, But had Adis known what Thea, what Helena and Celine and the Fae had done, he must have. He'd loved Thea, after all. And yet he still had the fucking nerve to talk about her as if she wasn't a murdering piece of shit. To talk about Bryce having her light as if it was something good.
And when you have privilege because of your ancestors and what the horrible things they did, it is important to think on that and reflect on it and let it weigh heavy on you. I think that there's a lot of people who are kind of like, well, I didn't do this. My ancestors did. I had no say in that. And it's like, yeah, but what your ancestors did gave you 500 steps forward than where the descendants of those who were enslaved, who were colonized, have opportunities. You have a lot of the opportunities because of what your ancestors did. Does that mean that you need to walk around with this heavy weight and guilt and constantly holding you down? No, but do you have to be conscious of it? Do you have to try to do your part to say, how can I make the playing field more even here? How can I uplift others? Yeah. So I think Bryce is a good example of this.
Yeah, and I think for Bryce, I can only imagine that her reaction is reflective of people who are like, I'm descended from both sides and this fucking sucks. Like, she feels it personally because the mother she loves, the father she loves, they are human. They are suffering at the hands of the Fae, and she is of them. And so she hurts for them. She's mad at what's been done to the humans. She's also mad that she's like, wait, I'm supposed to have this gift, and this gift is actually shitty. This privilege is shitty, and it comes from a shitty person. And in a lot of ways, Thea provides Bryce with confirmation bias against the Fae. She continues to be disgusted by the Fae and think them incapable of good because this is who she's descended from. So unlike Hunt, who hopes for atonement, Bryce sees the world a little more black and white. Quote, there would never be any atoning for what her ancestors had done. Sad and bleak.
I mean, I think this goes well into the question of the week. How does colonization shape the landscape of the story and the character's development as well?
I think this is not what Bryce came for.
Yeah.
She did not come to learn a story about colonization and the hand that her ancestors had in it. And it's really upsetting for her. And she really feels that anger towards that history pretty much throughout this entire novel. And I think it makes her determination to get rid of the Asteri even more intense. I think it's her unwillingness to talk to Hunt when he wants to push back, because for her, it's become personal. Like, it's not just about her being part human now. It's her trying to atone for what her ancestor has done and the situation she's created, essentially.
Yeah. Bryce has claimed the human side of her entire life. She identifies as human. I'm starting to relate in many ways to her. But she also is Fae passing. And her father is Fae, and she could get away with being Fae. Yeah, she's curvier than some of the Fae. Yes, she's still made fun of, but the privilege that she experiences is from her dad's side. We now know that her dad's side is one of the straight up colonizers because she saw someone who had the same shade of hair, right?
Right.
And I think there's this like mix of, as someone whose mother comes from ethnicity of people who were colonized and then whose father is the colonizer, I get that. I think this is a moment where it doesn't matter how much you might relate to the side of you that has suffered, that like she wants to identify as much with the humans as she can. She is Fae. And the thing that's going to save everyone are her Fae powers. And you can't do that without accepting why you even have those powers to begin with and what you could do with it. And then you look at someone like Hunt, who his ancestors, although part Hell Prince, then you look at his mom, comes from a group of people who were weaponized and were colonized, and he was served a different, heavier hand than Bryce. Lidia is descendant of another group that attempted to colonize. We don't know about that, and we're not going to speak of it now in this episode. But, you know, there's a lot of people in this book of who descends from those in power and who descends from those who are not. And, you know, you have to tap into the privilege side in order to help the masses.
Yeah. And I think Bryce is an example of someone who's like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to wield my privilege for good.
Yeah.
And she has to be stubborn about it because I think it takes a certain level of stubbornness to achieve it, if that makes sense, because it is easy to become discouraged and worn down the way that Hunt is.
Mm-hmm.
But Bryce feels a responsibility to undo as much as she can of what her fate ancestry did. And I think that's admirable. That shit's hard. It's hard to fight the good fight.
Truly. Truly. All right, let's sign off.
Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us tomorrow for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks discussion of today's chapters from Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince that's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Drybar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FROMREBEL.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone.
Nice to meet you. I'm Erin Sky Kelly.
I'm Carrie Blakeney.
And we host the podcast called Get the Hell Out of Debt.
As soon as you say the word debt, I think you just scared people away. We're not scary, everybody. We're fun.
We discuss relationships and life, but mostly money, in order to help you get the hell out of debt. You're going to hear from us, you're going to hear from experts, but most importantly, you're going to hear from you, people just like you who've gotten completely debt-free or become financially free simply by following a very easy system.
Right here where you found this podcast, look for us, Get the Hell Out of Debt.